We now return to Senior Notebook on WENY.
Hi, and welcome back again. We're here with Akua Lezli Hope, and she is a poet and author. And we were talking about County Cullen, and I'm going to let her go back to what she was talking about earlier.
So I was just saying County Cullen is an influence because he taught my father as a young person. Another name that I feel I must name is Gwendolyn Brooks, because Gwendolyn Brooks was the first African American to win the Pulitzer Prize in poetry, and her poems were on the shelf in my parents' home. But I must also talk about our foremother, Phyllis Wheatley. Now, not that any of these people were influences, but they were names that were said in my household and held up for me to look at, to know that at least someone who was very much like me had worked in this way before, accomplished in this way before. And I'll stop talking.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's what we're here for. You once said your family gave you a feather nest. Could you unpack that for us and give us a little bit more meaning about what that term actually meant?
Gee, it's a metaphor for the love that surrounded me and the support that surrounded me. And I mentioned them. Well, the book, Them Gone, is very much about family and those connections and the ways in which I grew up. I think I said a little bit earlier before, I'm the third generation of my families in America. My grandparents, all four of them, migrated from the Caribbean. 2 from Montserrat and 2 from Jamaica. And so they made their way to Harlem, New York, and grew and thrived there. And my parents grew up within a few blocks from each other. So there's this connection of culture, but they were also, I think they were just, I don't want to say singular, but special to me in that they supported me in my intellectual striving. I grew up having books, being encouraged to read, being encouraged to listen to music, to think, to speak. In fact, we would have practice sessions in terms of debating and everything. So all of that kind of nest, that kind of upbringing helped create who I am. And I think as you get older, when you look back on how are you made, I realize that I'm not self-made, that others put a dream like steel in my soul.
That's a good,
To
to Langston Hughes, that's a good piece of terminology. Do you have a particular audience that you write to, or just your feelings?
Neither just my feelings. I have a particular psycho-socio-political construct. So there are things that I want to see in the world, that I want to have happen in the world, and my poetry is the way that I hope to point to that, to express that, to help make that manifest. I see myself very much as a cultural worker, and words are what I work with.
Fantastic. Is poetry the first love of your life?
That's hard. Poetry is perhaps A and music would be B. So poetry and music, I studied music as a young person. I studied the violin, the cello, the bassoon. I went to a music major high school. And then for political reasons, I felt like I needed to gain some other skills. And so I was pre-med in college. I went on to grad school. Through all of that, I always wrote. But through all of that, I always made music, and I also make art. So poetry is primary.
How do you know if what you're writing is good, or do you know if what you're writing is good, that what you're writing is good? Or do you have to go back to it?
I don't know, and many people don't know. What I do know is if I've fulfilled the craft, if I've done it with rigor, with good intent, with good effort. Over time, I think I'm a little bit better at critique, but I yearn for critique. critique is always useful.
Fantastic. Before we go, I'd like you to just recite one short poem for us. Can you do that for us, please?
Oh, yes. Seneca?
Seneca.
The first time your visiting nephew rode Captain Bill's narrative boat, he was afraid. Though the dark, polished wood interior, solid, brown, comforting with flowered seat cushions, was bright as a Sunday parlor. Sunshine on boat's wake made waves teeth and knives. You know how to swim. Yellow, orange, candy-colored lifesavers overhead. Nothing bad will happen to you, but it already had. Skinny adolescent narrator pauses. Captain details where those before walked. Asaniki, stony place of people whose path is that faint, narrow rock ledge descending, disappearing into gray, shattering shore wall. Salt mines across this deepest Finger Lake. Another mysterious steaming of stuff from below. All this strangeness and feeling yourself a small, small thing on a big indifference. Seneca.
Thank you so much, Akua. I am really happy that you were able to join us, and you have a cornucopia of information for everybody. And I love your poetry. I've read your book, and we thank you for being here with us on Senior Notebook. And until next time, I'm Cleveland Thrower, and thank you so very much for joining us.